Alright, so since we're on the cusp of a Last of Us Part 2 news blowout, I figured I might as well put out this long overdue off-the-cuff video talking about my experience with the Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and Last of Us multiplayer since the servers have recently shut down on the PS3. Now, if you are really panicking that you can't play these games anymore, there's a silver lining in the fact that you can play Uncharted 4 multiplayer if you have a PS4 that's still active. Naughty Dog has not shut that down as far as the date of this video goes, and also you can play The Last of Us Remastered online, so The Last of Us multiplayer is still up to some extent on the PS4 but not on the PS3, and at least that multiplayer plays at 60 FPS, whereas the old variant did not. I believe it was a lock 30. Anyway, let's get on with our experience on the Uncharted multiplayer. Now, I played all the Uncharted games. I started with Uncharted Drake's Fortune. That was the first game that came out, and that surprisingly did not have any multiplayer offerings. I believe it was planned in the past, but apparently Naughty Dog could not make it work out, so they decided to focus on the single player offerings instead. Then when it came to the sequel, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, not only did they have a great single player, they also decided to tack in some multiplayer, and it was surprisingly good. I believe Uncharted 2 was the most balanced as far as multiplayer goes. There is boosters, don't get me wrong, but we'll get into that later. So the meta of this game, it was really great. I believe it wasn't until a patch where they decided to reduce health that things really changed for the worse. So this patch essentially made you die faster, and I believe that Uncharted 2 was perfect as it was, and I definitely think that they didn't need to do that damage patch. I think the health was just fine, but supposedly Naughty Dog decided around, I think it was patch 106, that they decided to patch the game and make the health lower. This game had a variety of modes that a player could play. I believe back then multiplayer was beginning to become all the rage when Gears of War became super popular, and they offer stuff like team deathmatch, and third person multiplayer was really on the rise. You know, you had shit like RE5, they were experimenting with Versus, Mercenaries, things online, and I think Naughty Dog really decided to take their own shot and decide to incorporate a lot of the treasure hunting mechanics, thematics inside the Uncharted 2 multiplayer. So what we have on the list is a slew of modes. Now, your modes range from your typical team deathmatch to elimination. Elimination is where the player only has one life each round and you have to survive and kill the enemy opponents. They have plunder. Plunder is where you carry the treasure to a certain point, and it's basically like, you know, you're capturing the flag, except this time you're capturing the treasure. Then you have objective based modes like King of the Hill, where you have to dominate a certain point before the point moves to a specified location on the map. Chain Reaction and Turf War are literally the same. There's just one little slight difference. It's 100% domination to a capital T. But with Chain Reaction, you have to capture all the points. If you capture all the multiple points that are spread across the map, you automatically win the match, as opposed to Turf War, where you have to hold down the points and wait until your points go up in the match, and the opponent with the most points in that match wins the round. Then they had ranked modes. They had the lab. The lab was cool because it was a certain map selected each week that had like particular weapons on it. So it would be pistols and grenades on one map as a playlist. Then it would be sniper rifles only. Then it would be RPGs only. It was really fun. I am surprised that Naughty Dog really does not do that with Uncharted 4. Have a map in rotation for differing weapons on it and have the players play in that playlist each week to keep the multiplayer fresh. The lab did make a comeback in Uncharted 3, by the way, so that was also pretty cool. Along with a slew of multiplayer offerings, there was also co-op offerings where you could essentially, as opposed to like going in team deathmatch and playing like 5v5 against players in differing modes, you also had co-op where you could take like 3 buddies and go online and face a variety of enemies, whether it's wave-based. Horde mode was just the bread and butter of Gears of War co-op, where you're fighting almost endless waves of enemies. With survival mode, the Uncharted devs were like, hey, let me copy off your homework, fam, just put into Uncharted form. Gold Rush is where you have to take the gold and put it at a certain point, so it is like co-op plunder. And then they had Siege, which is DLC, which was like co-op arena where you're fighting hordes of enemies, only it was like domination as well in co-op form. So you had to be in this circular corona to damage the enemies. If you're outside of it, you don't get any points. That's how Siege works. They also had co-op adventure mode, where it was like a non-canon scenario where you and 3 players had to fight against enemies, fight a boss, and ultimately win, or ultimately do an objective at the end and have a good time. But since those servers are down, you won't be able to play that stuff anymore. I want to talk about my positives and negatives of the Uncharted 2 experience for multiplayer. I do believe that the gameplay, thinking about it now, is a bit slow. It's like you have your typical run speed and your roll button, but you can't sprint compared to stuff like, you know, Last of Us where you can sprint, or stuff like Uncharted 3 where they had a sprint button. So it feels pretty slow, pretty robust, but maybe there is a caveat to that, because you could think that, well, that's more methodical in the multiplayer experience. Some stuff I liked. I do like the aesthetic of the levels. You go through levels that was in the single player campaign, so there's these weird, you know, Buddhist temples. There's also like stuff you've seen like Shambhala, which was incorporated really well. Uncharted is all about verticality. You're climbing up certain things, trying to pull people down, and you're trying to really, you know, get a nice leverage on the opponent if you have like the high ground. And I thought that was really interesting in the multiplayer. I also like the fact that you could have all this fun with that game mode. Like you could do certain in particular things, and there was things on the map that had like these reactionary moments where a tank would explode a wall and you would figure out like, what do I do now? Do I run, take cover, hurry up and hide, or simply do I use this to my advantage? Maybe I could lure a guy over here and maybe he'll get killed by this tank. So they had some nice environmental stuff going on, but it did start to get a little bit annoying as they progressed more into the multiplayer experience with the sequel. There's other things that I kind of also disliked. I mean, a lot of people were complaining about the Dragon sniper rifle doing like one shots on people. I thought that was fine. If you pick up a sniper rifle and you're good at it, yeah, you're supposed to be able to get some nice headshots on people, some nice body shots. I thought that if you sucked at it, you could potentially miss. So there's that little feature in there. And I thought the weapon variety was good. You know, I really didn't have a problem with the entire meta of the Uncharted experience, and they had like these cool little perks involved, like negative boosters, where you could handicap yourself. You could take away your blind firing like reticule and you wouldn't be able to see it. You could also inflict double damage on yourself, so if someone shoots you, you would die faster. But if you are very, very good at what you do, then having negative boosters would give you more money, and that would incentivize you to level up. So you had a risk reward system there with certain boosters. I didn't really like situational awareness. I'm not going to lie. I didn't like the fact that once you hit level 50, you could see people through walls with their name tags, but there was sort of a negative there because you had to stand still while doing it. Like I said before, I think the patch that lowered health kind of ruined the experience a little bit for me, because I didn't like dying on the fly. It wasn't like it was a Twitch shooter like Call of Duty. I felt like Uncharted was a bit more methodical with this multiplayer, and if I had the opportunity, if I had the chance, I would have kept the health the same way as it is, or I would have done an Operation Health style mode where you could play the original health format without taking that away from the player. Uncharted 2, like I said, it was really balanced. They didn't have a lot of bull crap that was in the other iterations of Uncharted in terms of like helping the player out or giving them assistance. I do believe Uncharted 4 was a little bit more balanced with that, but the micros kind of killed it for me. And we move on to Uncharted 3. Now, Uncharted 3 was the next evolution of Uncharted multiplayer. They knew that this had to go over well with the people, so they added in a lot more. I think we're gonna talk about the additions that they made, and some of them I do like. They have regular deathmatch. That was great. So if you didn't want to just play TDM, you could also fight against the world and be on your own and do a regular deathmatch. They also had 3-team deathmatch, which was 3v3, and it was a lot of stuff going on. Like I thoroughly enjoyed some of the additions to Uncharted 3. If you didn't like all the new additions they were making with the kickbacks and everything, they did have classic modes where there was no metal kickbacks. Everyone had the traditional loadout, which was a pistol and an AK-47, but you could still use boosters, so it really wasn't truly embodying the classic mode. It was just enough to be similar, but those boosters were still there on your guns. They also had some variations to Co-op Arena, which is Hunter Co-op Arena. They also had Shade Survival, which was basically the Jinn monsters that showed up in Uncharted 3 when Drake was hallucinated. And there's also a lot of other stuff going on that they really added. I'm glad they added like split screen multiplayer as well, so maybe if that game works on the PS3 emulator, we could probably do some parsec on that as well. That feature goes very undervalued, actually. I believe it was in Halo. It would kind of take your buddy that's with you locally and it would duplicate your name tag, so it would say Ren Operative 1 or 2, and you could take those people online that's local with you and play co-op or multiplayer ventures. They don't really do that feature anymore because mostly everything is network based, so it's quite a shame that they're killing couch co-op off like that. But once again, Naughty Dog did think about the idea, so that's why the feature was implemented in Uncharted 3. Uncharted 3 was fun, but they had a variety of problems. This was when the problems started to be introduced in the form of power plays. Power plays gave the losing team an advantage, so to speak. So sometimes what would happen is the announcer would make a quote-unquote play. They would say something like, here's the marked man, so it will automatically show the enemy VIP, or it will automatically show all the enemies' name tags if you were losing, or it would give the enemies the ability to do double damage to you. And this was really annoying. I see comeback mechanics in an online video game as a crutch. I do not like when the player can come back on you due to being aided by the computer. Personal skill, teammates, and coordination should always factor into a match, whether you win or lose. If something falters, that is the other team's fault. If something falters, then something is wrong, and that's why you didn't get the victory. I don't want guys to come back last minute all because the enemy team saw our names and they got a bit of a point lead. That's bullcrap, and Naughty Dog knows it. This was just nonsense, and I don't like how they presented this, along with the overtime and, you know, sudden deaths. And I didn't also like the fact that they had absurdly overpowered weapons at the time. You had instantaneous grenades that could blow up as soon as you threw them. You had nuclear grenades that could kill 5 people at the same time. You had cluster bombs. You had perks where you could turn into a spider and spread out into a variety of spiders and crawl on people and instantly kill them, and they cannot kill you in the process, or at least I think they couldn't. I really don't remember. It's been a long time. Either way, all of these perks, boosters, and accessories just muddled the experience, but there is some silver linings there. Like I said, I do like the content that they presented in the Uncharted 3 multiplayer experience. One thing I didn't like is the fact that they had these intros. Intros were these dynamic events that were larger than life set pieces. I think one in particular had you jumping from jeep to jeep as the player goes on to reach a plane, and the enemies will spawn inside the plane and the other players are attacking them via jeeps. The problem with this is that sometimes the player will fall off the jeep and die, so that would be a cheap death. Sometimes the people from the plane would have a clear advantage or a clear shot on the people obviously needing to jump from transport to transport. They would be wide into the open for assault. They decided to say, screw the intros, we're going to cut these off or play certain playlists with the intros off, because it encouraged some scorn from the community because these people did not like this stuff. I did appreciate the sprinting, the faster gameplay. Once again, the classic Uncharted tropes are there. It does play a bit like Uncharted 2, so if you're familiar with that game, you would be in a much faster paced environment. You would just have to deal with some of the nonsense that they made with the kickbacks. I also really didn't like the Cal 7. I believe that was a bull crap gun. If you used the Cal 7, you were a pure scrub. It was a gun that you couldn't ADS because the recoil was so bad. Well, you could if you wanted to, but I thought this small little nub of an AK-47 was a gun meant for up close, blind firing, and punching people out. And can I say that I don't believe the Uncharted melee has ever been great. I really don't like just going up to someone, pressing square, having to press square again. Usually what people did in the community as a meta, they would soften people up, which means that they would shoot them a little bit first, then melee them because they had like knockout punches. I think it was a great thing in the third game as opposed to the second game. Either Drake or the villains punching people in the nuts when you finish someone off or breaking their neck. I thought that was cool, having those little melee finishers in there as opposed to Uncharted 2, where you could just either break their neck or do these weird punches that would take like almost 10 seconds to do, and in the meantime you're getting shot in the process or grenades thrown at you. So, Uncharted 3 multiplayer, not the greatest thing compared to Uncharted 2, but still can be a good time with friends. Now let's move on to The Last of Us multiplayer. The Last of Us multiplayer introduced something called The Last of Us factions, and the factions would mean that you would start like a 12-week trial period, and they tried to do some weird incorporation of Facebook friends, and they would die and they would pop up on screen, but that got filtered out. During this 12-week grace period, you were either a Firefly or you were a Hunter. You had to pick and choose which faction you preferred the most. We will get back to this mechanic after we talk about the multiplayer, but once again, be reminded of this faction mechanic because it's going to factor into something later that's really kind of annoying. Anyway, the best way to sum up the multiplayer for The Last of Us is a culmination of stealth action survival. I thought it was cool that you could sneak up behind people, shank them, you could forage for supplies like you could in the campaign. Naughty Dog is really good at implementing those thematics from the single player into the multiplayer, so everything you know about The Last of Us in terms of crafting and surviving and making weapons and all of that exists in the multiplayer. You can craft things to make things like sharpened 2x4s, or you can make smoke bombs, you can make nail bombs, you can enhance your guns, you could put on armor, and I thought that was really cool, going around and finding all these items. But once again, as with everything, there is positives and negatives to this multiplayer. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the modes. Once again, like I said, it is 4-man squad based. I forget how many players you could play in The Last of Us. I swear it was like 4 or 5. I don't particularly remember, but I remember it's mostly a multiplayer where you cannot be a one-man war. You have to heavily rely on your teammates to survive. It's all about teamwork. One guy wandering off, he might kill one person, but he's going to get snuffed by like 3 other people. You have to stick together and survive and kick the other enemy team's ass. The Last of Us was fun because of its very tactile nature, and also due to the fact that it's a very gory multiplayer. All of that stuff from the campaign, like I said, it comes in at full swing. You can blow a man or woman's head off with a shotgun like no tomorrow, and they also had more executions in the form of DLC. You could toggle on both if you wanted to. There's like original executions that are instantly put into the game, and there's the DLC ones which are optional, but you can go around and blow someone's leg off, their head off, their arm off. This shit was very grisly, man, I'm telling you. I loved it. I love the whole tactile nature. Like I said, I love the gory nature. I love the fact that this was all teamwork based. As for the modes utilized in the game, I'm a bit disappointed by them. I feel like there's a little too much human on human action, and they do nothing in this game to incorporate any of the clickers or any of the creatures that you face in The Last of Us. No bloaters, no nothing. I believe they should have took a page out of Resident Evil's book where there's modes where you can fight against the creatures and it's co-op based. That could have been something really cool with co-op, but they chose not to have co-op in this game. Everything in Last of Us is competitive, so you have the competitive modes. I think there's one mode that's focused on only team deathmatch. There's also elimination. There's also interrogation. The mode is basically textbook definition of interrogation in every singular word. You have to interrogate other enemy teammates in order to reveal the enemy lockbox. Once the lockbox is revealed, you have to go and open it. There will be definitely some opposition, and once you open the enemy lockbox just enough, or you have enough points over them, then you win the match entirely. I think you have 4 attempts to unlock the lockbox. Once you get the 4th attempt, then that means the round is automatically over. Last of Us, once again, a lot of positives. Cool crafting, cool mechanics being implemented, nice team-based work. You could stealth kill people, which is always an added bonus. I said I wish they really could have added in the clickers and the creatures. I also wish that some of the sort of like weapons that you get from crafting, like Molotov cocktails and smoke bombs and all that, I wish they weren't so damn broken, especially the Molotovs. Like, you could chuck a Molotov at someone, it's an instant kill. I know it's a fucking Molotov cocktail, but still, I just hated the fact that someone could craft that shit, throw it at you, and kill like literally 3 people, and it's such bullshit. It's such an annoyance. Also, this game had microtransactions, just like Uncharted 3. I forgot to mention that, like, Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us had micros. I think it is ridiculous. I really can't get behind it. I do not like microtransactions in Uncharted 3 in The Last of Us, and hopefully they learn their lesson. I don't think they will. There's micros in Uncharted 4 as well, and there certainly will be micros in The Last of Us Part 2 unless they learn their lesson. No one in the community likes the micros. No one in the community likes the pay-to-win weapons. Just abolish that entire premise. I don't mind if they are cosmetics. I definitely hate it when there's pay-to-win weapons and there's a guy using a better gun than me over the base loadout. Holy crap, man, I forgot to bring up the whole listen mode thing, where you have a hearing mechanic where you can hear people through walls and stuff like that. I'm really not a fan of that stuff, and I'm really definitely 100% positive I am not a fan of how you can upgrade certain perks like listen mode that gives you like longer meter so you can use it. It's like a couple of perks like that in the game. Some are kind of helpful, like the ability to keep your enemy opponent marked longer. I thought that was really helpful, and some of them are kind of annoying, like you can't mark them back if they have a certain perk on to level 3, but like they cap it out after you set up your loadout, so you can't really have all your skills set to level 3, which is a good thing. I think they had some okay balancing in The Last of Us, but granted, it's really not perfect. So that is my experience with The Last of Us multiplayer. Some wasted potential with the co-op offerings, but as a competitive game, I think it was very well done, and hopefully we see more. Hopefully we see more craziness with The Last of Us Part 2 factions. It's a shame that they took down the Uncharted 3, Uncharted 2, and The Last of Us servers, but like I said, in the future, Hopefully these new games will carry the torch. Uncharted Lost Legacy also has the Uncharted 4 multiplayer experience. I also want to say that it was really cool back in the day that they had the Subway promotion for Uncharted 3, where you could simply, if you want a beta code or something, just order from Subway and you would get the multiplayer. That was fantastic. That was grand. I don't understand why they didn't do multiplayer betas like that for other games. I hope they do it for Last of Us. Just go to Subway, eat a sandwich, and you will get a beta code, no problem. That's what I did. I thought it was great promotion.
Hey, I'm Nathan Drake. If you're the adventurous type like me, then get in on the Subway Taste for Adventure for a chance to win epic trips and exclusive access to Uncharted 3. Get your code on 30-ounce drinks today. Subway, where winners eat. Ow.
And I don't understand why they didn't do it again. But like I said, Uncharted 3, I got into that beta like twice, and I thought it was a hella good time. I thought it was fun. My favorite Uncharted multiplayer experience has definitely been Uncharted 2, but the other games, they do have their qualities about them. Tell me what you think about your Uncharted multiplayer experience in the comments below. Did you enjoy those games before the servers went down? Did you get a final chance to play a match before it all unfortunately went down? What did you think about The Last of Us multiplayer? Do you enjoy it on PS3? You could play it on PS4. Are you playing it right now? Sound off in the comments. Let me know and get ready for that Last of Us Part 2 hype that is tomorrow. I'm excited to see what they have to offer at State of Play. And once again, I'll see you guys soon. Be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, share, all that good shit. It helps me out. See you guys later. Peace.